Just a minute. I will speak directly into the phone. Tonight we're here on a couple of items for this September 15th planning and zoning. Okay. And the two items we're going to be discussing are the Walkable Mural application and then the lodging analysis that our contractors have been working on. And I just got the documents like 20 minutes ago, but I did get to look at them, so I'm going to go ahead and ask for staff report on the Walkable Mural application. I know this isn't a real meeting, but let's see what the staff has to say, and then we'll open it up for comments from anyone who's there. Or is there anyone that wanted to call in tonight?
We didn't have anybody listed.
Okay, all right. I see we have Tony, and is that Doug?
That is Doug.
There, sitting next to Eric. And some member of the public just came in. So we have a quorum. We have Commissioner DeMoss, Commissioner Hatfield, Commissioner Charbonneau, Commissioner Cease. Will Commissioner Ambrosiani be joining us?
Madam Chair, we did not hear back from Mr. Ambrosiani, so we just put him a spot just in case.
Okay, all right. Okay, so who's going to go ahead and give us an overview of the application?
I am.
Thank you.
So, part of the reason you didn't receive a packet right before the meeting is because it's a work session, and the whole point is for us to work through these documents. So we were tasked with coming up with a permit application and possible areas from a last work session. So on page 1 of the packet, there is a permit application that I've been working with, and then today also worked with Public Works. So we've gone through, came up with some design guidelines that are going to need to be required. Location requirements in the application, in the packet, there are 3 different maps that show different locations. So those maps are on pages 6, 7, and 8 of the packet. So I just wanted to go through what the application is stating. You know, we can go through it and then have comments and questions, and we can hopefully answer those. So I want to try to keep this, I mean, I don't want an application that is so overwhelming, but for something like this that hasn't been done in the city, we are going to require quite a few portions to be filled in and by the applicant. So on page 1, we give the design guidelines. We're specifically stating that the crosswalks must keep the 2 white transverse lines with the reflectivity. After talking with Public Works and looking at the federal guidelines, we don't want to, at this time, really go into the area of working with the piano key. It's because if a group goes into paint and then paints over into those white lines, we might have some issues because they have to be a very specific standard. So we figured that this would be the best area to be able to allow these murals to be put together and still stay within our guidelines of the white lines. The artwork shall not contain white, yellow, or red in any way that would confuse a traffic signal. So, you know, you can't paint the whole thing yellow, can't paint the whole thing red, etc. No logos, no text, no advertising. No octagons or triangles or shapes that could again be confused with a traffic control device. So, if there's a drawing out there that has circles in it, as long as it's not a big circle in the middle that's bright red, type thing. I looked into the federal guidelines and then how other cities have done artistic murals and or walkable murals. So, I'm a firm believer in let's not recreate the wheel, let's just see how we can make that wheel work in the city limits. So location requirements must be one of the approved locations. So, tonight hopefully we can come to an understanding or agreement of these locations that were discussed at the last work session. They're approved on a local or collector streets where speeds do not exceed more than 25 miles per hour, and other streets can be considered at the discretion of the Public Works Director. They've worked really hard to implement and update where our crosswalks are, and so that would be a really good area for an applicant. If they have another area that maybe they want one up by the school, we can work at those sections. The materials and installation, this is an area where, in our mind, through planning and zoning or through community development, through public works, we want to try to have a local maintenance district, meaning if the applicant applies, they're local and their maintenance is done locally, that we're not having somebody from outside the city limits apply for a walkable mural and then turn around and 6 months down the road it needs to be maintained and we're playing phone tag. We want to be able to get somebody that's local. Street grade paint must be provided with a non-slip surface. I didn't include it in tonight's packet, but I've already started doing some specs, calling different agencies in Anchorage and the different stores here in Seward to see what the average cost is for this type of paint. You're talking anywhere between $34 to $86. And, that would be a specific, that would be street grade, but it's also the materials would be provided or approved by Public Works. So when the application's turned in, we can then turn around and Public Works can say, yeah, this is going to work, or no, I suggest you do these following things. I did include how to apply the 4 steps that would be required, turning in the application. I know people are going to look at this and see that must be turned in 60 days prior to anticipated install date. The reason for that is, number one, the amount of time that goes on administratively behind the scenes, and then to be able to get it in front of planning and zoning. If somebody comes in the middle of the month, I may not be able to get them right into the next planning and zoning meeting, so it would have to be the following one. So that 60 days, if it happens in 30 days, great, but at least it gives us a turnaround so the applicant knows 60 days before I'm ready to do this, I at least need to get it into the community development department. Public Works and Community Development will review the applications. We'll do the same type of procedure that we do like on CUPs and everything else. We'll get approval from all the other departments, and then once it is approved and signed off by Public Works, it will be brought forward at the first available regular meeting and for planning and zoning. On page 2 gives a breakdown of what's going to need to be attached with the application. An application fee of $500, which would be non-refundable, and that is due to the plan review and the staff time that's involved in the application. A deposit of $1,500, and that would be held for 3 years. that's, you know, that's to cover if for some reason the organization decides not to maintain it, we can go back in and paint it back to the way it's supposed to, resurface, pressure wash it. But you know, after talking with Doug, you know, we'd like to also put in there with the $1,500 that if at the end of the 3 years the organization decides not to extend their crosswalk or their walkable mural, and if they go in and they clean it all up, then we'd give their $1,500 back. So we'll include that into the maintenance and permit agreement. Again, you'd have to provide and tell us where the proposed crosswalk is, the names of the intersecting streets. I think on that aspect, if the applicant comes in, you know, we can help, we can provide a map, we can help you with that portion. And a list of the proposed paints, materials, and color specifications, just so we know what type of paint you're using, what type of materials that you're adding into the paint for the non-slip, and the colors, so that we are making sure that you're not painting it bright red to stop everybody type thing. I keep going to the red color because that's immediately what I think is just stopping it. And then a design drawing showing us, you know, what your plans are. There's already been some talks of people wanting to, you know, maybe do some native art in the middle of a crosswalk, doing mermaid scales, whales, those type of things. So this would give us a really good dimension of what you're putting in it and where and why, possibly. A working in the right-of-way permit, I did include that in the application, in the permit tonight, just so you guys can see what that working in the right-of-way permit entails. And that's on page 3. And then a control plan and drawing. So again, if you work with community development, we can help you with a map that would also help you be able to do this traffic control plan. And I started making some, you know, diagrams and just some how-tos, because I had to go today and ask, I'm like, so we closed down a street, what is required and what do we need to do? So I can make a little how-to that I think will be helpful in the application. The maintenance and permit agreement, we walked through 7 specifications. The idea is once this is approved, then whoever the applicant is would enter into a maintenance agreement that would be recorded and kept with that deposit, just so we, you know, in 3 years we can go back and it would be recorded that you have the ability to either clean it up or if you fail to maintain it, you would immediately forfeit your deposit. So, like I said, that walks through just at the program's discretion. Additional permittees' responsibilities may be stated in the right-of-way permit. That will also be doable in the permit or in the maintenance permit portion. So that application, the permit itself would be confirmed by legal for us to be able to record it. And then, like I said, pages 3 and 4 and 5 are the right-of-way, working in the right-of-way permit that's provided and is currently online with the Public Works Department. And pages 6, 7, and 8. On page 6, that is the Port Avenue crosswalks. You know, instead of including a big map, we've decided to break it into 3 sections. So on your map, you'll see 2 different circles in purple. Those are the 2 areas that crosswalks, you know, that at the previous work session, it was, you know, it was an idea to do it on Port Avenue for cruise ships.
Jackie?
Yes?
Can I just ask something about those Port Avenue crosswalks?
Yes?
While everybody's on that page. In the application on the first page, it says that the crosswalks can't be on a street that's over 25 miles an hour and have to be where there's a stop sign. But the two crosswalks that are currently on Port Avenue, cross Port Avenue, there is no stop sign where they're at. The stop signs are on the side streets.
And the
So
application.
I'm unclear as to, do the paintable mural crosswalks have to be where a car is going to stop, or just at an intersection where some street has a stop sign?
It needs to, and that's one of the guidelines, specifically discusses transverse lines. Those are areas where, tell me if I'm wrong, Doug, those are areas that there are stop signs. But on Port Avenue, there are not stop signs, but they are the traverse lines, not the...
Yeah, it was at the end of the meeting the last time as we got through those, and it was decided kind of on the fly at the end to try to do some of these others. The original plan and the procedure was that it had to be a stop sign that was already controlled. That way you have the two parallel lines, the transverse lines. They're already there. The other ones that you see around town, and you can see where there is not traffic control, a stop sign, or we don't have a stoplight obviously, but stop sign there to control the traffic. Those are the piano key type of crosswalks, and those are a little harder to do, which that's what these on Port Avenue and some on 4th as you turn the corner on the next page. But those were just things that were added at the end of the meeting last time, saying, well, we'd like to do these too, or at least have the option to do those, and we never got through the full, how do we do that?
So,
If you look
to
at the
follow
Port
up with
Avenue-
that, while Doug's on there, if we wanted to do one that was where the stop signs are as you're coming, going into the cruise ship dock, or at where 4th Avenue intersects 4th, there are currently no white horizontal lines where the stop signs are. Would the city put the white lines in and then the applicant do the artwork in between, or would the applicant have to do the white horizontal lines, or the white perpendicular lines as well?
The applicant will never do the white reflective lines.
Oh, good to know. So couldn't we put some white lines where those stop signs are? I guess there's no stop sign there because that's the
Right.
entrance
That's a
going
tough
into
one,
the cruise ship.
and maybe just something to think about is moving the circle that's up toward the highway, moving it over onto 4th Avenue, the little crosswalk that does have a stop sign that comes off of 4th onto Port. Might be a way to solve that one. The one up by the railroad terminal, that's something we're really going to have to think about, and on all of these. That's your in and out for all that ship traffic, for not only the ships when they're in, but all the freight traffic that comes back and forth, and the boat traffic, all the Catalyst Marine. That's a tough one to paint, and depending on how long it takes you to paint, and can it be done after hours, or can it be done, all right, let's try to do one lane and have a flagger there to keep traffic moving around it. So there are some complications to some of these as you're doing them, on how to do the traffic control. And that was one of the things that it's listed up there. We didn't go over it real well on how to deal with the traffic control, but that will be through help from Public Works to do the traffic control, because some of that is you have to have a certified traffic control plan to do a road closure, and that's what we provide. We want to just see what your plan, you want to close where and how, and then we'll help you get it squared away right. But these ones on Port,
Okay.
I mean, we're trying. I think everybody's looking at where do we start? How do you get one, where, and how? Our best bet for sure is stop signs where you already have a stop sign and crosswalk. If there's a stop sign that doesn't have a crosswalk, then we need to talk.
Okay. Okay.
And then Cindy,
All right.
on the Port Avenue, previous discussions have always been, working with the railroad and the businesses on Port Avenue for that Port Avenue Improvement District. So, these are options and ways, from the last meeting that we can possibly get people to cross the street and walk on the right side of the road. where there's sidewalks instead of, and that was our goal with adding these two into that area, was for the purposes of the cruise ship passengers, to help lead them in safety's way instead of through the industrial mess that we know of that's down there.
So, Jackie, what you're saying is we want the people to cross Port to the north sidewalk, walk along the north sidewalk to the railroad depot, and then cross Port back again. And both of those crosswalks are the piano keys ones that we don't want to have murals on.
Right now, on our map, they show them as transverse lines. I don't, did you
Yeah, this one
paint them?
was 2000.
We did an awful lot more this year.
Okay.
And go through, I have to double check that particular one to see if that was done correctly or not.
So that's something that we need to just work
That
through.
we'll have to try to work out if we have to do something with a different traffic. I know the other traffic there does not want a stop sign there. They're not loving crosswalks. That extra one we put in for Icicle Seafoods there. Their crew was just wandering across the road all the time. I wish I could say they're all using the crosswalk now. It's what Icicle, or I forget what they call it, what they requested and worked and said, we'll use this, but I still see the workers just kind of helter-skelter across. But at least it has some visibility for the drivers to see that there is a crosswalk there and that there's pedestrians.
And Doug,
Does any member of the commission or the public have any comments regarding the Port Avenue crosswalks while we're looking at that map?
Kelly's got her hand raised.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I guess just to make sure that it's clear in the application that it doesn't necessarily have to be at a stop sign. I think it said like it can be up to the discretion of the public works.
Yeah.
Once you get past this X-Float Road, the only people down there are the cruise ship terminal, so I don't see as much of a problem with that one, but this one right next to 4th, I don't know. Trying to maintain that might be a really big problem. I work down there, so I'm just...
It might not be right there, maybe it's on 4th Avenue
Yeah.
instead of Port, I mean, because there is a stop sign there. So in that vicinity, maybe.
That might work.
Anyone else? Okay,
Gary.
Jackie, can you go on to the next map?
Cindy, Gary does have his hand up.
Oh, okay. Gary, I didn't see your hand. Yeah, now I see your hand.
Okay, I really don't know. Where did all this come from? The idea?
The direction came from a recommendation from council that was made at council, and then council put it back to planning and zoning to help make the application and make it applicable to the code.
How long ago was that?
7 months ago?
Within the
8?
last year.
Yeah.
January, February, early,
Oh.
right before COVID.
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
BC.
So this has been under consideration since last year,
Yes.
but this is the first time we've talked about it?
No, we had a work session prior to, and that's why we're back here today. I mean, we had a work session discussing what direction the planning and zoning wanted administration to go with making an application, and talked about possible locations, which is what you have in front of you tonight, and we've just been able to bring it back to a work session.
Okay, so I must have missed that meeting then. All right, so this is,
Gary, I thought you were there, but,
I think
I mean,
you
it
were.
started out, the Pride group came in and wanted to do a rainbow crosswalk to council. So it went back and forth, council then brought it forth and said, okay, we need planning and zoning, community development to make an application for this. Then it went there, and that's where it's been kind of stuck, and then COVID's going on and everything just kind of dropped out on a lot of things.
and this is painting the roadway.
Yes, painting between the two white lines on a crosswalk.
those set of our white crosswalk things is gonna be somebody's artwork.
No, the white stays the same.
The white stays
It's
the
the
same.
space between the white.
Yes, but yes, it will be somebody's artwork. Or design.
So you got a white line, then you got pavement, you got a white line, and you're telling me they're gonna be painting something between the two white lines?
Yes.
Correct. The white lines are 10 feet apart.
We're gonna vote on this, right? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Would you like me to continue with the maps, Cindy?
Yes, as long as everyone's had an opportunity to ask their questions or make comment. I don't see any more hands raised, but again, I'm on a 20-second delay, so go ahead, Jackie.
So then we move into the harbor crosswalks. Again, these are piano keys, but these were two areas requested by planning and zoning to look at, and then that's why we added at the discretion of the city or public works director, because, you know, maybe you have something that isn't going to paint over the additional white lines in it, and maybe they choose to, you know, we can work on a crosswalk where there's a stop sign on South Harbor or North Harbor, you know, but
Yeah, both of those.
yeah, between those two businesses are where the stop signs are, so that might be the best. I'm drawing that on my map right now, Cindy.
Thank you.
And then the page 8 has the waterfront and downtown crosswalk locations. So you'll see on the waterfront on Belane, we've got right where you turn to go to the culverts. There, we could put one there, and then down by the pavilion there on Adams Street is another crosswalk that would give the ability to do a mural there. And then after working
Jackie, isn't the one down by the Branson Pavilion another piano keys one? Or are you considering taking it across Adams?
It's one right now, it is not piano keys. And I think
Okay.
that might be something that, you know, Doug, I think he's moving in the future of making certain areas have the piano keys versus a stop sign. So even there, we could put it at Adams, on Adams Street, if we're going to just stick with the traverse lines. But if Doug's discretion saying, yes, we could do one that crosses from Adams to the pavilion, again, it would be at the discretion of Public Works.
Okay.
And then you'll notice that in the downtown historic district, after having the work session last time and great discussion on, you know, in the last couple months with historic preservation, we chose to sort of stay out of the downtown historic district right now, because again, this is all new to the city, and I would really like to include historic preservation in allowing or making the decision on where they would like to see, and maybe they have some guidelines that, you know, they want to stick with a historic, you know, in my mind, Doug and I were sort of talking, you know, maybe they want to make it look like a railroad track in one area, or maybe they want it, you know, something that deals with the historic nature of Seward. I think that it is a good starting point. We talk about Jefferson. It was brought up multiple times at the last meeting. You know, there's two areas right there, two places that right now have the traverse lines that are not piano keys that we could paint or have a mural painted. And then, you know, my hope is that I can work with historic preservation, do this presentation with them, and help them figure out how or where they would like to see them in the downtown areas. And so those are what we have tonight. I want to point out page 9, because even though, like, we're moving forward with an application and possible locations, we need to also be very aware of how our current code states right now of what a crosswalk is. And so we will need to have to make some code changes that have the definition of what a walkable mural is and what the requirements for those walkable murals are. So that is a code change that would need to be put into Chapter 11 and or Chapter 8 or Title 8, or where it reference one or the other portions of the code. So I just want everybody to be, I want to be very clear and open that it's not something that can just be, we're going to do this. We need to be able to know that somebody can go to our code and pull up what a walkable mural is and understand those guidelines and those requirements of what Seward wants to see as a walkable mural.
Okay, Jackie, so that would involve a resolution, once we have, I guess, well, going forward, you want to discuss this with Historic Preservation, get their input, then bring their input back to us for us to make the final draft that will go forward with a resolution, with an ordinance for code changes to include walkable mural definitions and any other changes that are required in those sections of code.
Yes, ma'am. It would be just like what the Planning and Zoning Commission did with the city on mobile vendor sites. That it's that sort of same process. We write the code, we figure out where it's going to go in the code, and then we include the application and the mapping, so it's all approved through planning and zoning and the council. And
Right,
then,
what I'm trying to get at is the historic preservation portion of what you said. You're taking it to them, but their recommendations will come back to us for our approval, because we're the ones that will be taking it to council for adoption.
yes, ma'am. And
Is that correct?
I plan on including this into the next HP packet as a discussion item, so I can go over the application and the process and what we're requesting HP to look at.
When do you see it coming back to the commission for action?
I would say if I can get it onto the HP's October calendar, that we could possibly bring something back at our November meeting.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion by the commission before or the public? Is there anyone in the public wishing to comment on the discussion or the packet as presented? Gary?
Well, we've got one member of the audience.
Tanguy Lebrecht, 219 6th Avenue, also HP Commissioner. Just merely want to say kind of excited about this project and very happy that as we've been having ongoing discussions about working together, that would probably be kind of a thing we could work together on in one of our work sessions if we have joint sessions. But anyways, speaking as citizen, thank you, and excited to hear about this project. So thank you.
Gary has his
Thank you.
hand up.
Yeah, I have, if it's gonna be delayed till like October, November, there'll be no painting this year then.
Right.
There wouldn't be this year. It would be an application process
It'll
that
be
would
in
be for
2021 or later.
Nathaniel.
On Port Avenue, we have those two spots, and if we're wanting to direct people to that north side of the sidewalk, can we just add in that other portion, that other sidewalk, crosswalk that crosses 4th? So we have both
Oh.
those there?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? If somebody picks the one on 4th, it makes sense to have another one right on 4th, right there, and have them kind of, that would,
Where
keep
the
people-
stop sign is,
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly. And get you across.
Get you across.
Across 4th.
Kelly?
Depending on what you guys decide for transverse lines or just stop signs and stuff, that intersection on 3rd and Jefferson, I've nearly hit tourists so many times because they're walking across a pretty big street. there's the bus stop right there on the corner. And I mean, this other one here on Jefferson also makes sense, because I feel like people are kind of coming, I don't know, up Fourth and then crossing over to get to the bus stop sometimes, or coming from Harbor, or the waterfront.
Well, we can't allow anything on Third Avenue because it's a highway.
Even at that point when they're going 25.
Yeah, we couldn't allow a mural by the state standards.
We go all the way to see it.
I didn't know, I'm gonna see this.
Yeah, Third Avenue is all state maintained and controlled. If you could get something through the state on it, that'd be an avenue to try that. But as far as anything to do up there, we do have a memorandum of agreement for working snow with them and doing some different things. They actually paint our lines down the centers in our agreement we have.
Do they paint the crosswalks too?
No, we do.
Okay.
And they paint their own, but we've been kind of working back and forth with them. Sometimes they're just not able to get there, in the summer or something. We try to help each other out, and they also do some of the same with us. But as far as permission to do anything on Third, I agree. That's a terrible
It's
intersection.
terrible.
Well, I'm not gonna be the first one to put a stoplight anywhere, because I've already been warned about you're going out of town if you decide to put a stop sign
They
or
said the same
stoplight.
thing to me.
But, you're looking at Port Avenue up there, Port Avenue and Third, it's awful in the summer. I mean, you got so much traffic going out there, that's another intersection that really does need something else.
Yeah, it'd be really great if we could figure out some way, at the lagoon. I mean, you look at how many people stand right there just to try to cross over into the harbor section, so, but I think this is a good start.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't realize that distinction.
Yeah.
Liz? you have your hand
No,
up?
I'm good.
Anyone else on this topic? Any other comments or recommendations? Okay. Are we ready to move on to the lodging analysis?
Madam Chair, I tried to get a hold of you earlier. I need to step out. I have a prior engagement, but Eric and Andy are going to work through this portion of the work session.
Okay, I have one question regarding the financial commitment to this contractor. Are we still under contract with the analysis contractor?
Yes, they extended it due to COVID.
Okay, they extended it at no additional charge?
No additional charge.
Okay, and I was just concerned about, there's probably been a drop in city income regarding B&Bs or nightly rentals or lodging, so I didn't want, I just wanted to know if we were going to continue with the contractor and if the payment would be coming from income from lodging.
Yeah, currently, right now, like I said, they extended it, so this is sort of a wash year for us. They are still helping us with the data, and Eric and Andy have both been working diligently with them, but there's no money exchanged for this year.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry I have to step out.
I don't think you need me anymore either.
Thanks, Doug.
You wanna, Tanya, you wanna sit up one of the tables?
Okay, Eric or Andy, I guess you're taking the lead on this?
Okay, well, I have a list of the things that P&Z asked for at our last meeting. I just want to go down the list a little bit and let you know what we were able to get for you and what we don't have at this time. As far as the Kenai Peninsula Borough sales tax, that is, I was informed, lumped together, so when we get it, it's for all the sales tax, so we can't actually break out the short-term rental information, but we do have reporting on the first and second quarter of this year on the bed tax, so I can get you that. And we can
Okay.
compare it to last year. So you can see,
And this bed tax is with regards to just the nightly lodging.
yes, we're just going to talk about the nightly lodging with this. Not
Would the
with,
bed tax numbers that you got include hotels and motel numbers?
no, I requested that those be removed from the numbers that I was given from finance.
Thank you, Eric.
From the third-party contractor, Harmari, Andy and I have been working with them, and we're still working out some kinks on their reporting some of the lodging in the wrong spot and some wrong numbers. So we've been working with them on getting those fixed up. But we did see that there's been a drop this year on short-term rentals, the nightly lodging. But there has been some of the short-term rentals that have gone to monthly for this year, and they may return back to nightly in the future.
Eric, what I counted was 85 on those maps that your department provided, 85 total nightly lodgings.
Well, okay, so the map and the table have different numbers because the maps show the number of parcels that have a nightly lodging on them. But when Andy worked on this, the matrix here, and what we did is for the duplexes and triplexes and apartment complex, or not a complex, but apartments, those are actually whole numbers instead of partial numbers. So yes, there is 80-something parcels, and then when we look at the data, it will be a little bit higher because we have different numbers on whole units.
Okay,
Okay,
97, okay.
right. Okay, so let me go into the bed tax. And this is from the reporting that was done for the first and second quarter of 2019, and then the first and second quarter of 2020. I did get a whole number for 2019, but it's not really fair to compare each of those. For 2020, there were $5,518, I'm rounding, of bed tax collected, which was $771 more than in the year 2019. So people started off with a better year this year than in 2019, which was $47.48 for the first quarter, reporting on 2019. Where we see the big difference is in the second quarter. The bed tax dropped from around 91,227 actually, to 13,956. So there was a significant drop in rentals this year, in short-term rentals that have been reported. For 2019, the overall number was 274,790. So, but again, we can't say what it's going to be this year yet. We expect it to be much lower, based on that second quarter. Okay.
So like, based on that, I just would like to add something if I may.
Sure.
You could look at the short-term rental activity matrix here on page 10 and compare 2019 to 2020. And while there was a slight dip in the number of licenses that the city issued between 19 and 20, but the Fed tax information is indicating that the actual activity took a huge hit.
Yeah.
Reflected in just seeing that, oh, okay, we issued, I don't know, a dozen or so less licenses. That's not so bad, but that's
Right, and we,
quite a dip.
Yeah.
yeah, so this isn't reporting like the average number of nights that people are continuing to
Yep.
rent, or not rent in this case. All right, so, and then having to do with the business licenses, we got information from the clerk on the number of business licenses overall. In 2020, there were 608 total licenses issued. Out of those licenses, there were approximately 60. Depends on when you are looking at it. We have 61 on our matrix here. Short-term lodging, there are 9 hotels that operate in Seward, and then there were 40 monthly rentals that were licensed this year. So the lodging is a significant, well, it's about 10% of the businesses in town for the short-term lodging. Let's see here.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me get back to YouTube and see if I see any hands.
No hands
Go
yet.
ahead if someone's got a comment they want to make or a question. Or are you finished, Eric or Andy, with your presentation?
Well, that was just the stuff that I wasn't able to get into our packet. So we have the matrix and the maps that we can go over with everybody.
Before you start, Eric, I know that Mr. Ambrosiani, who's not at the desk tonight, had some questions about ground truthing and what kinds of lodging are in what kinds of zones. Did any of the other commissioners have questions with that, like those kinds of questions or comments regarding?
We don't have anybody saying they have any comments. As far as the
Okay.
ground truthing goes, Andy and I did go one day only so far. We were able to go out and check 2nd Avenue. And when we were doing that, we were looking at the numbers of units at the different houses, whether the access was from the alleyway or from the roadway, because there's some homes that are facing the alley. And Andy had marked down which ones of those homes were short-term rentals, but we don't have that information complete, so we didn't want to bring all that to you right now.
Okay, so you're going to go up and down the streets with the list of nightly rentals and determine which nightly rental accesses off of the street or off of the alley?
That's just one of the things that we added into what we were looking at. It's not part of the short-term rental version of the ground truthing. Go ahead.
Okay. Liz, I see your hand up.
Madam Chair,
Oh.
I want to clarify one thing on that, on the ground truthing work that Eric and I are doing, and, boy, when was it? Sometime back, we had a work session, we talked about, sewer housing stock. And, I had collected information from the Kenai Peninsula Borough on, residential land uses. And went through there and started to calculate how many available housing units there were. Part of the thing with the ground truthing is going around and, like, we have some, I would call them, in some situations, like non-conforming accessory dwelling units. Trying to get a handle on how many of those are there, because I think the numbers that I came up with from the borough were low. And so in just going around and having a look, I'm seeing that there are, there's more available housing. We are also going to try to analyze how much of the housing market here is used for, monthly rentals versus short-term rentals versus maybe second homeowners, just to give a bigger picture. So that's that bigger project we're working on.
Okay,
Okay.
Liz, go ahead.
So when you're doing the ground truthing, driving around and looking at houses, how do you determine that what it's being used for just by looking at it?
What I would do is cross-reference it with a business license application. So if you're renting a monthly rental, you should have a business license application for that monthly rental that's tied to that address, And the same would be true for like a short-term rental. And we're not gonna like really make any assumptions, but we're gonna gather the best available data
Like,
that we can have through observation and through applications that we receive.
so, like, would you be able to give me an example of something that you saw at a residence that would alert you to think that is that what you're looking for, to see if it's?
No, it's more for just being able to see what is on the what is there on the ground actually. If there's extra units that are
Got you.
part of that parcel. One of the things we did find is up on the Low Canyon Creek Road. That's the Low Canyon Road. There, the units have an A and a B, and we didn't actually have that written down anywhere. So things like that.
Makes sense. And then just one other thing, on your comment about the short-term rent, some people changing from short-term rentals to nightlies, I really think that that's going to be an ongoing thing for this community, because we've, for instance, with our rentals, gone back and forth from nightly to monthly, from year to year, from season to season, and we've just, I see people kind of adjusting from year to year on that, depending on what the local economy is like.
Okay.
So I don't know,
And we'll
that's
track
gonna be
that
a-
through the business licenses so that we can get a feel for like the averages.
Right, but like, okay, yeah.
I think that this will always need to be continually updated as new houses are built, and as like uses change over time.
Right.
But the idea is having some data to help inform the commission on land use decisions.
Okay. One of the things that we had talked about when we first started this analysis was how many unlicensed nightly rentals or Airbnbs or VRBOs we had, and we had a lot, and then we were considering how we were going to address compliance, and one of the things was a possible starting some sort of a fine if people didn't follow through with a state business license, sales tax registration, city business license, and lodging permit. But at that time, the city manager did not want to do that, and this, of course, probably isn't the year we want to do any of that. But is that our end goal, to try to make sure that everybody that has the nightly rental is licensed and most of all had their safety inspection, their fire inspection?
Yeah, the safety inspection is the key, and getting the license is part of that. Just to make sure that the residents are covered and in their liability with the operating such a use, and the city has also signed off on it in that case. I'm not sure about the fines. I wasn't part of that conversation, and this is actually the first I've heard of that part.
Yeah, Eric, I thought that might be a little history that you weren't here for, and just wanted to bring up that our main reason was that if we're having guests into our community staying in homes, that we've done our part as a city to make sure they're safe. Commissioner Hatfield, you have your hand up?
Yes, this might not be the year to really give us that much information, but we were at some point getting like information about how many B&Bs were running without licenses, and that number seemed to be dropping over time. Like, I imagine it probably dropped for many reasons this year, but do we have that updated information?
Could speak to that.
Okay.
So my understanding of how this third-party monitoring software works is that it's giving us the information in real time. So I've not personally had, I've been working with the data that they send us, but I've not been really interfacing with the port. That's something only Jackie has access to. But again, this is my understanding is when we get data from them, it's just like a snapshot at this moment in time. So for this recent one that they've sent, I would go in and verify some things, or make some corrections, provide them with some additional information that for some reason they did not have. And after making those corrections, there's three that are not licensed that we've never heard of, and can't speak about them individually or what we're gonna do about it.
But
But
I think before it was like 30 or something like that. Like, it was a higher number.
A lot.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
and I
don't
think
know.
that's probably because everyone, I mean,
Some of
you
it's
know, a
just
lot of
because of
people
the year.
just, yeah, and even before, just the influx of it being so easy to rent out your room with the Airbnb and
Yeah.
everything, I think that was kind of that moment when everybody kind of jumped on that train. But it
Well,
seems like you guys got a handle on that pretty
Yeah,
well.
I think I guess that was my point, is like, I think having the application process and the proof of the insurance and everything else, like, kind of cut down on that, and we saw a decline. I assume for a lot of reasons this year, it's probably way lower, but I don't know, I'm glad that it's working.
Yeah, I think the numbers, as long as those numbers on that spreadsheet that you prepared that showed the comparison to property management in 2019 and 2020 and owner management 2019 and 2020, as long as those were close, a lot closer to what the contracts analysis said was on the ground, that's the kind of thing I think would bring us comfort as a commission, would bring me comfort, and hopefully our council would agree that the contractor in the community development work was worth it. Anyone else wishing to bring up anything on? Any member of the public? This might be some new stuff for you as well. Andy and Eric, did you give all the information that you were ready and prepared to give out?
Well, we had some observations that we made while we were putting this matrix together, and
Okay, as long as it is under the umbrella of what the work session was advertised on, have to stay within the confines of our advertisement, so, I think it was lodging. So, as long as it's under that umbrella, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So when we looked at, we broke down north of Phoenix and south of Phoenix because that's where our development requirements change. So you can have some of the 30-foot lots in the south. But also, we looked at how your residential uses tend to be more room rentals in a home owned by the property owner, and then some of your others in like the UR and AC and OR, the more commercial, that's where more of the property managed units are. In general, it looks like people are renting out the entire house rather than just portions of their house, so that's information that's interesting and important to consider when we're looking at this as well. And like Andy put on the bottom of the matrix, the majority of our short-term rentals are owner-operated. It's not like a major majority, but it's 70+% is owner-operated. Then north of Phoenix, you see it's more of a residential area anyway, so we have more room rentals in that area compared to the whole house rentals in the more commercial areas. Those are just some of the things that I noticed while we were putting this together.
Is short-term rentals just anything less than 30 days?
Yes.
So, go ahead, Liz.
No, I'm done.
Okay. I had a question on, you were talking about business licenses for when a lodging changes from nightly rental to then the winter months they go to month rental. Did I hear wrong, or Eric, did you say that they would need a different business license?
There are people who have both the monthly and the short term, and they have switched. This year there are some people who did not renew their short term and only got a monthly.
Okay. So is that how then they report their sales tax and bed tax differently on the borough's tax forms? Or can you just put it all on one form, whether you're month to month or nightly?
I can answer
Andy?
that question. I think with
Liz?
the
No, your delay's kicking in, Cindy. I'm good.
Yeah. Sorry.
Cindy, this is Andy.
Yeah.
With the borough's sales tax form, they don't collect bed tax. Rent is taxable. Like, long-term rentals are taxable, and I guess the short-term rentals are taxable too. I would imagine that they just pay all the sales tax that they're owed because it's all the same. And then when they're going to pay the city bed tax, they fill out that form separately, and they give us all their. City gets all the short-term rental bed tax, and then they hopefully don't pay for the monthly rental because they don't have to.
Monthly rental bed tax.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, some of the business license applications that have come across my desk, they indicate both monthly rental and short-term in the summer. So they're putting that on there, and they get all that on one license. And then, like what Eric was saying, was that some of them just said, nope, it's going monthly this year, and so that was a bit of a change.
Okay.
Yeah, but isn't the bed tax, don't I? No, that's sales tax. I pay a sales tax on my rent, not bed tax. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay. I think I've caught up to the YouTube now. Is there any other comments, questions, or discussion on either item that we had on our work session tonight? Okay. So, and Andy and Eric, you're still going to work on this driving up and down streets and ground truthing. Are we going to get information on what you find, or is this something you're doing for zoning purposes, or what?
Oh, you want to answer?
Thank you, yeah. Well, we hope to and we plan to present the housing dashboard spreadsheet to the commission, again, with updated information and then a report on, kind of what we did to collect that information. And additionally, this will just be used to inform discussions at regular meetings or to maybe cite in an agenda statement for any item. Just think it's valuable information to have.
Okay.
Cindy, I just had a question for
Yeah.
ground truthing, like for the ground truthing that Andy and Eric are doing. We've been talking a little bit in the past about ADUs and maybe giving those an actual definition in the city code of some sort. I noticed when I walk the streets of Seward, there's a lot of sheds, guest houses, small, possibly dwelling units. I'm kind of curious, like if while you're walking around, maybe you can keep a tally, and obviously we don't know what they're being used for, but there are a lot of them popping up here and there, and sometimes you can kind of tell if it's just a shed or if it's a place somebody might be living. But it'd be interesting to see like maybe how many of those exist in the city as well, because we had kind of talked about maybe getting some sort of definition about an accessory dwelling unit, allowing some sort of like tiny houses or something like that. I'd be curious to see like what might it already look like in town.
That would be good. One of the things that I do remember being told was that the definitions for lodging and housing and dwelling, we have a whole bunch. Maybe it would be good to be able to more standardize some of them. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the direction I would like to take when we start looking at the lodging stuff is, okay, are you a whole house owner operator? Are you property managed? Are you renting rooms owner operator? Are you property managed? And maybe make things a little bit more streamlined.
Or just more clear too.
Yeah, that might be interesting to see how other communities address their lodging definitions, because there are other similar tourist communities out there, and there might be some good changes. We're always tasked with updating our codes with regard to Title 15 and land use, so that sounds good.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the topics on the agenda on the work session tonight?
I just have one other thing. The maps that we provided, those are kind of showing the number of units in the general area. It's more of a neighborhood area, but when you start getting down to the south side of Phoenix, it ends up being almost like by block, and the abbreviations have to do with the zoning districts that are in there. In some of these cases, you can see the blocks have multiple zoning districts and their activity in all of them.
So is that rental units the number that's in there? Like in the, it says 4 CBD downtown on 4th, is that 4 rooms for rent, 4 apartments for rent?
That is 4
different businesses?
4 different parcels
Okay.
that have something on them.
Okay.
I wasn't able to break it out into a lot more than that. Just trying to get, some information on there for you guys.
So Eric,
Yeah,
these maps relate to parcels, not to business licenses?
well, yes, because there are some parcels that have multiple units on them. That's not reflected in these numbers. It's just the number of parcels in that area.
Okay.
And the zoning of those parcels.
So, like, let's take the Ale House Lodging. They have 4 units, I believe, Liz, or more. Did you count those as 4 units or 1 unit?
1 unit. And
1, okay.
Yeah, you can
That's 4
see
different rooms, okay.
that actually has number 2
if
next
it
to
was
it.
business license or lot or parcel, I guess it would be 1, so,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, in that case, you see 2-CB. It's because the ale house and the sourdough are on the same block. So that kind of explains how that works.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Eric and Andy. Good work. And any final comments? I think we're moving ahead well with the Walkable Murals. I hope we have something ready for people by next spring to do some artwork on our streets. Any closing comments? All right.
When are
Thank
you
you all
gonna be
for
back
putting
in our
up with this.
presence?
October 6th, she'll be back for that meeting.
You'll be back October 6th, Cindy?
Yes, I will. I just shucked 36 ears of corn and put them in the freezer today. I'm in Minnesota, where
Oh,
corn
I'm so
is still
jealous. Bring back corn
delicious. Yeah, I'm bringing back some.
and cheese curds.
Oh, we miss you.
Yeah, we miss you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for putting up with me telephonically. All right.